On my wedding day, everything looked perfect, until I learned my sister-in-law had secretly booked our venue under my husband's ex's name. When the manager called it out in front of guests, I realized she wasn't trying to ruin just the day. She was trying to erase me completely. That's when I decided. Her game was about to backfire in ways she'd never imagine. Before I continue, make sure to hit subscribe and join our channel. Your support keeps these powerful stories alive, and I promise you won't want to miss what happens next. My name is Claire Bennett, and for months I had dreamed of this day. Not just because it was my wedding, but because it symbolized something bigger. I was finally starting a new chapter, leaving behind the doubts and whispers that had always followed me when I dated Daniel. He wasn't just my fiancé. He was my safe place. The man who looked at me like I was the only one in the room. But loving Daniel came with a shadow. That shadow's name was Emily, his sister. She had this uncanny ability to smile sweetly while sharpening her claws. When I first met her, she hugged me like she was thrilled to have me in the family. But her eyes always gave her away. She didn't see me as Daniel's future. She saw me as an intruder. The morning had been flawless. My dress shimmered like spun glass, and my father squeezed my hand, whispering how proud he was. The church bells chimed, guests laughed in clusters, and every detail, from the roses to the golden chairs, looked like a dream. For a moment I believed it, that maybe, just maybe, this day would be untouchable. Still, a knot tugged at my stomach. Emily had been strangely quiet all morning. No sly remarks, no suspicious glares, no overstepping boundaries. It should have been a relief, but instead it felt like the stillness before a storm. Daniel noticed my unease and pressed his lips against my temple. "Ignore her," he whispered. "This is our day." I wanted to believe him. Then the venue coordinator walked in. Her polite smile faltered as her eyes scanned the clipboard in her hands. She hesitated before leaning closer, her voice meant to be private but sharp enough for nearby guests to catch. "There's an issue with the booking. The reservation isn't under your name. It's under Jessica Moore." The world tilted. Jessica. Not a stranger, not a random error. Jessica was Daniel's ex-girlfriend, the woman Emily had always described as the one that got away. My stomach dropped as whispers immediately spread like wildfire. Jessica Moore? Here? Why her? It was like the air in the room shifted, heavy with curiosity and doubt. My bridesmaids stiffened, their faces pale. My father's jaw tightened, his grip on my hand almost crushing. Across the room, Daniel's mother adjusted her necklace, pretending she hadn't heard, but her avoidance said everything. And then there was Emily, standing by the champagne table, her lips curled around her glass, eyes glimmering with satisfaction. She tilted the flute in a mock toast, a predator savoring the moment. I tried to compose myself, but my heart pounded so violently it was a wonder no one could hear it. This wasn't some clerical error. Emily had planned this. Booking the venue under Jessica's name wasn't just sabotage, it was theater. A public humiliation staged with perfect timing. She wanted everyone to wonder, was Daniel really over Jessica? Was I just a placeholder? Gasps turned into murmurs. Guests leaned closer to each other, eyes darting between me, Daniel, and Emily. "Why her name?" I heard someone whisper. "Do you think he still talks to her?" Each word was another dagger, twisting deeper. The celebration I had envisioned, the fairy tale I had built in my mind, was collapsing before my eyes. Daniel's face went pale. He stammered, trying to explain to the manager that there had to be a mistake. But his voice, once strong and sure, sounded weak against the rising tide of gossip. Emily's smirk widened, her expression feigning concern as she whispered to an aunt nearby, shaking her head like she was heartbroken for me. That was her gift, poisoning people without them even realizing it. For months she had played the part of the supportive sister, but behind the curtain, she was tightening every string to make me look like the outsider. And now, in front of everyone who mattered, she had delivered the ultimate blow. My chest felt heavy, my eyes burning with the sting of tears I refused to shed. This was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. Instead, I was standing in the middle of whispers and judgment, a bride fighting to hold herself together. But even through the humiliation, something inside me hardened. If Emily wanted a war, she had picked the wrong battlefield. because I wasn't about to let her turn my wedding into a stage for her cruel theater. She had made her move, and I was already planning my counterstrike. The whispers didn't fade. They multiplied. Everywhere I turned, eyes lingered on me, waiting to see if I would break. My grip on Daniel's hand was firm, though inside I was unraveling. He tried to comfort me, but his words were drowned out by the questions clawing at my mind. How far had Emily gone? And why Jessica of all people? Daniel demanded the coordinator double-check the system, but her answer was firm. The booking had been processed under Jessica Moore, confirmed with a credit card and email. The pit in my stomach deepened. This wasn't just a prank. Emily had gone as far as creating a false trail to make it look authentic. She wanted permanence in the humiliation. I caught her across the room, her eyes locking with mine. She tilted her head, her expression a perfect mask of pity, but her lips twitched into the smallest smirk. That was all the confirmation I needed. My sister-in-law had orchestrated every detail. But what was her endgame? Was she trying to embarrass me, or send Jessica back into Daniel's life? Guests circled in small clusters, whispering louder now, some not even bothering to hide it. A cousin muttered, "Imagine booking your own wedding under the ex's name. You can't make this up." Another voice chimed, "Maybe Daniel never really moved on." My cheeks burned as their stares pierced me. The seed of doubt Emily had planted was already sprouting in their minds. Daniel's mother finally approached, her voice sharp enough for only us to hear. "This is disgraceful," she hissed, her glare fixed on me as though I'd masterminded it myself. "Do you realize how this looks? To the family? To the guests?" Her words stung more than I expected. I wanted her support, but instead she joined the chorus of suspicion. Daniel's jaw tightened. "Mom, this isn't Claire's fault." But his defense fell flat. The damage was done. To them, I was no longer the glowing bride. They saw me as the woman who had allowed scandal to creep into their pristine family. Emily's silence in the corner only made it worse. She knew she didn't need to say a word. Her trap was working. My bridesmaids pulled me aside, whispering frantic suggestions. "We should delay the ceremony. Maybe switch the reception to another hall. We can spin this, Claire. It's not the end." Their words blurred together, but I shook my head. No, I wasn't going to let Emily dictate how my wedding unfolded. She had set the fire, but I refused to fan the flames. Still, I couldn't shake Jessica's shadow. Her name wasn't just a ghost from Daniel's past. It was a constant thorn Emily wielded whenever she wanted to remind me I wasn't the first choice. And now, she'd engraved Jessica into the very foundation of our wedding day. It was cruel, calculated, and painfully effective. Daniel pulled me close, whispering in my ear. "Don't give her the reaction she wants. That's all she's waiting for." His words steadied me, but only slightly. He didn't understand. This wasn't just about today. Emily was waging a war to erase me, and if I let her win this round, she'd never stop. As the coordinator scrambled to correct the records, Emily finally made her move. She approached with her usual grace, her dress shimmering under the chandeliers. "Claire, sweetheart," she purred, loud enough for the guests around us to hear. "I'm so sorry this happened. Isn't it just the strangest coincidence? Jessica's name, of all people. What are the odds?" Her words dripped with poison masked as kindness. Guests nodded, eyes narrowing at me, as if Emily had confirmed what they already suspected. She was baiting me, painting herself as the concerned sister while I stood there humiliated. My tongue itched to lash out, but I bit it back. Exploding here would only make me look weak, unstable. And Emily knew it. Instead, I met her gaze and forced a smile. "Yes, Emily. What are the odds?" My voice was steady, though inside I was boiling. Her smirk flickered only for a second, but I caught it. She wasn't expecting composure, she was expecting collapse, and I refused to give her the satisfaction. The ceremony continued, but the damage lingered. I could feel the doubt crawling through the room, infecting every smile, every toast. Even as I walked down the aisle, I heard the whispers trailing behind me like shadows. Emily had won this round. But as I stood beside Daniel, vowing to love him despite everything, a thought crystallized in my mind. If Emily thought she had humiliated me today, she hadn't seen anything yet. Because I wasn't just a bride, I was a fighter. And the war she had started was far from over. By the time the vows were exchanged, I was no longer just a bride. I was a strategist. Emily thought she had cornered me, but what she didn't know was that I had prepared for this moment long before today. Deep down, I had always suspected she would try something. I just didn't know when. So I had come armed, not with anger, but with proof. While the guests settled into the reception, I quietly slipped into the coordinator's office. My hands didn't shake as I asked to see the booking record. It took only minutes to confirm what I already knew. The credit card used belonged to Emily. She hadn't even bothered to hide it properly, too drunk on her own cleverness. The email was one she used for shopping. I snapped photos, my chest thrumming with cold satisfaction. When I returned to the hall, Emily was in her element, working the crowd like a politician. I heard her laughing softly, whispering her concerns about me to anyone who would listen. Each false word dripped like honey, sweet enough to sound believable. She wanted me isolated, small. But she didn't realize she had just handed me the stage. The microphone squealed as I stood at the front of the room, my dress glittering under the chandeliers. Guests hushed, expecting a toast, maybe an emotional bride's thank you speech. I smiled, calm, collected. Before I begin, I want to clear up a little confusion about the booking issue earlier. Murmurs swelled. Emily froze, her glass halfway to her lips. I continued, my voice steady. Some of you may have wondered why our venue was booked under the name Jessica Moore. Strange, isn't it? Considering Jessica hasn't been part of Daniel's life for years. But weddings have a way of bringing truth to light. I lifted my phone, screen glowing with the photos. The booking wasn't Jessica's mistake. It wasn't Daniel's. It wasn't mine. It was Emily's. A gasp swept across the room like a wave. All eyes shifted to her. She tried to laugh, shaking her head, but the evidence was undeniable. Claire, darling, you must be mistaken, she began, her voice brittle. But I cut her off. The credit card used was yours. The email? Yours. And if anyone doubts me, the coordinator can confirm it right now. I gestured toward the woman, who nodded firmly from the back. The trap Emily had laid for me was now a noose tightening around her. Guests erupted in whispers, this time against her. Why would she do that? To ruin her own brother's wedding? What's wrong with her? The tide had turned, and Emily could feel it. Her face flushed crimson, her composure cracking. She opened her mouth to defend herself, but the damage was irreversible. Daniel stepped forward, fury burning in his eyes. Emily, you tried to humiliate Claire on our wedding day. His voice thundered through the hall, raw and commanding. For once, Emily had no smirk, no witty retort. She stood cornered, exposed in front of the very audience she had tried to sway. But I wasn't finished. I leaned forward, my voice soft but razor sharp. Emily wanted everyone to believe I didn't belong here, that I was a mistake. But all she did was show her true self. And today, in front of all of you, I want to say this clearly. I'm not going anywhere. I married Daniel, not his sister. And unlike Emily, I don't need to tear others down to prove I'm worthy. Applause broke out, hesitant at first, then swelling until it filled the room. I held my head high, basking not in vengeance, but in victory. Emily had wanted me humiliated, erased. Instead, she stood alone, her mask shattered. Her poison had finally turned back on her. Daniel squeezed my hand, his voice low. That's my wife. And for the first time that day, I felt the weight of his words anchor me completely. I wasn't just his bride. I was his equal, his partner, the woman who had faced down the storm and emerged stronger. As Emily stormed out of the hall, whispers trailing behind her like a scarlet letter, I raised my glass to the guests. Now, I said with a smile, let's celebrate love, loyalty, and the kind of family you choose, not the kind you're forced to endure. The hall erupted in cheers. And as the music swelled, I danced, not as the bride Emily had tried to destroy, but as the woman who had turned betrayal into triumph. Her game was over. Mine had just begun. As Emily stormed out of the hall, whispers trailing behind her like a scarlet letter, I raised my glass to the guests. Now, I said with a smile, let's celebrate love, loyalty, and the kind of family you choose, not the kind you're forced to endure. If you want to hear more true-to-life stories of family betrayal, shocking revenge, and powerful comebacks, subscribe to Family Betrayal Confessions. Your support keeps these stories alive, and you won't want to miss more jaw-dropping stories.